Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another very special interview here on the channel. We've got with us on the Zoom line via phone, we've got Derek Sherinian, keyboard player extraordinaire, who's got a new solo album coming out called The Phoenix on InsideOut Records, September, what's that, 18th, Derek, I believe?
That's right. How you doing, Pete? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us today. So, Derek is always keeping crazy busy in recent years. So, between Sons of Apollo and Black Country Communion and guest starring all over the place, now he's back doing his first solo album in quite a few years. I mean, I think the last one we're talking about, Oceana, right?
Yeah,
2011. So,
that's right.
so how long has this particular album and set of songs been in the works, seeing as you've been so busy doing other things in recent years? Has this been kind of germinating for a while, or is this something that recently came about?
Like probably I started writing for the Phoenix maybe a year and a half ago, and I first hooked up with Simon a year ago from about a year ago today. And we just got together over like 3 or 4 writing sessions and came up with this album. And I'll tell you, there's a really strong chemistry with Simon. It's been 8 years since we did our last record together. And when we hooked up, it just felt like no time had passed. And we just started writing. We knew we had some guests coming in. We knew Bonamassa was going to play, and Steve Vai was coming in, and Zach. And then Kiko Lureo and I wrote a song that I brought into Simon, and Simon loved it and played percussion and all this stuff on it. So we're really happy with the outcome of the Phoenix. It really turned out to be greater than we expected.
Cool. Yeah, I just had a chance to listen to it briefly earlier today. And I mean, it kind of kicks off in crazy fashion, right? You've got the title track, which starts almost like your own personal eruption by Van Halen, right? So you got
That's like,
were you going for that? I mean, that's kind of, as soon
yeah,
as I heard, okay.
absolutely. I wanted to start my record off with a middle finger raised and just come in strong. And I love it. It reminds me very much of an early fusion track by Billy Cobham, Quadrant 4,
Oh,
with
yeah,
Billy
that too.
Cobham and
Yep.
Jan Hammer. And so I like kicking off like that with the keyboards. There's me and Simon, and then it turns over to Billy Sheehan, and then to Zach, and then we all kick in together. Then the song starts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I totally dig it. It's a great way to start off the album. So you're someone you've dabbled in a lot of different styles throughout your career, played with a lot of different artists and bands and whatnot. So can you talk a little bit about the overall vibe of the new album and some of the styles that you went for on all the different tracks?
Well, I think it's a great blend of hard rock, jazz rock fusion, and maybe some progressive rock as far as odd time signatures go. But it's very rooted in the 70s as far as production and sounds that we used, and just overall playing approach. So I would say it's very 70s based, but more modernized, and great, perfect selection of players on each song.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll get into kind of who's on the album. I think before we kind of do that, I have to ask you. I mean, you've worked with him before, but what's it like recording a whole album with Simon Phillips? I mean, he's one of the best ever, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've actually done 5 now. This is the 5th one, and every time I'm just, my ears are wide and eyes are wide open. There's so much to learn from this man who has done so many records and is so seasoned, and there's such a level of excellence that comes along with Simon. Everything that he does, I just try to expose myself and absorb as much as I can, because I know it's going to make me a greater musician and a greater artist.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've now let's talk about the whole rest of the cast. So you've worked with on this album a lot of your mates in Sons of Apollo and Black Country Communion here, although Mr. Portnoy is not on this album, right? But I'm sure he's just as busy as you are, so I'm sure you guys had a hard time getting your schedules together. So a lot of other familiar faces that you've worked with before. So can you talk a little bit about the full lineup of the album? I see you know, Joe Bonamassa is on one track, a very cool take on Them Changes, and maybe talk a little bit about how that came about. Was that like his idea or your idea? Very cool cover that I think works out really well.
Well, Joe, I talked to Joe about playing on this record, and he said yes. And so when we were discussing what he should play on, I felt that it would be a waste to not have him sing. Like, if he's going to come play on my record, we got to get him to sing. So we were trying to figure out what would be great. And then we came up with the idea of Them Changes. I used to play with Buddy. That song is special to me. And Joe loves Hendrix and Buddy Miles, and Simon loves Band of Gypsies record. So it made sense. And that's what we went with. And Joe came up to the studio, and no roadie. He just comes in with an amp and a guitar in one hand and a couple pedals and set up, and 1 or 2 takes laid the guitar track, and then 1 or 2 takes laid down the vocal track. And it was really great. We ended up shooting a video during the session. So Them Changes will be the 3rd single on the record, out in September, and there'll be a video to go along with it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and what I love about this, and again, a lot of your albums, because you've always had very notable players on your albums, and this one is no exception. You bring on board guys who have very distinct styles and sounds, right? So even if I didn't look at the list of musicians on the album and just started listening to it, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Zach. And when Billy comes in, right? And it's Joe. I mean, is that kind of like you went with guys, again, and you've worked with some of these dudes before, but to have these folks with such recognizable styles, I mean, did that help kind of flesh the album out?
Well, no, those are my favorite. To me, that's the most important attribute in a musician, is to have an original style. I mean, I go on YouTube, there's kids from all over the world that are like in their teens that are doing these acrobatics on guitar and keyboards and drums that are just fucking, it's insane, but it's starting to sound very robotical. And something I talked to Simon about, that technique is a means to the end. But in the end, it's how do you come across on record? Are you able to transfer your personality and a style into a sound where people can hear and go, oh, that's that guy? And then are you versatile? Can you transfer that sound in different musical settings, not just the band you're famous for? And that's what I love to do on my records, is I like to get the very best of the best in all of the genres and write songs with them or for them, and put them in musical scenarios where they're going to shine even brighter than they have on their own records. And ultimately, I want their fans to become my fans, because I've provided a new atmosphere for their favorite artist to shine in a way that they never have before. Right. And so that's what we do on the records. I'm doing nothing differently than when I was 16 years old, listening to a Michael Schenker record with Simon Phillips on it. But now the only difference is Michael Schenker's calling me to play on his record, and he's going to be playing on my next record. And so I've written a song for Simon and Michael Schenker to play on for my record. So, I mean, that's the only difference, is that I'm living it now.
There you go. I was just going to, you mentioned Schenker. I was just going to ask you, it's like, so when are we going to get to hear you and Schenker playing together? Right. So,
well, I just did a track on his record. He was very generous with, the amount of solo space that he allowed. I got 2 really great solos on it, and he loved it so much. And what was cool, his lawyer sent back, well, how much do we owe you for this? So I said, I don't want any money to play with Michael Schenker. It's my honor. If he wants to return the favor and play on my next solo record, then that's great. And so they responded immediately, Michael, it would be his pleasure. So jumping on that, I wrote a song right away, and I'm going to have Michael play on it very soon.
That's pretty cool. So it sounds like, so when you're putting together an album like this, and obviously, as you said before, there are some songs where you actually collaborated with specific musicians, but do you at times, do you compose a track and say, you know what, I think Bumblefoot would be perfect for this song, and then you go reach out to them and do you does that kind of germinate in your mind as you're putting these songs together and think, well, you know what, this guitar player, this bass player, this drummer would sound great on this particular song?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it becomes obvious. Anytime there's a fretless situation, I'm always going to go to Tony Franklin. Anytime there's aggressive hard rock bass where it's a lot of notes and linear, I'm going to go with Billy because he has just a certain attitude. And then for fusion, Jimmy Johnson is my go-to guy, or Ernest Tibbs does a great job on the record. Every guy, there's certain guys that just have certain sounds that work perfectly in certain situations. Anytime I'm going to go for something really heavy, I'm going to go with Zach.
Yeah.
And if it's going to get really complex and technical and it's going to involve learning a lot of lines, you know, you can't go wrong with Bumblefoot. I mean, he's as good as it gets. Blues guitar, come on. You got to go with Joe, right?
Yep.
And so that's it. And I think it shows a lot about me as a keyboard player, that I can be not only a chameleon and blend with all the different greats of the greats on all these genres, but I'm able to hold my own playing wise and have my own style in all of these different situations and trade solos with them effortlessly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm sure there must be, are there a couple cats that you have long wanted to play or record with that you haven't yet that are on your wish list?
Yes. I mean, Jeff Beck is the unicorn. Simon and I always talk about how we need to get him on one of these solo records. But for me, that would be great. David Gilmour, Brian May. That was funny. About 2 months ago, Michael Schenker was on the list, but I could scratch him off now. But there's a few guys. I mean, those guys, those British dudes would be killer to play with.
Yeah, I keep thinking, I've long thought, it's like, wow, it would be kind of cool to hear Derek saddling up next to like John McLaughlin or like a guy like Demiola or Frank Gambale or whatever.
Demiola's played on my record. On
which one was that? I kind of maybe thought so.
On Black Utopia, he plays on the song Sons of Anu with Yngwie.
Yeah,
the first time they're ever on a record together. And then also we wrote a song called Gypsy Moth where he's on nylon string, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But McLaughlin would be a great score, I think.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about some of the gear that you used on this album? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I keep it really simple. The main gear is the Hammond. I use my 59 C3 Big Red, and through my Leslie and Marshalls to get that John Lord overdriven sound. And then my Mellotron, my Wurlitzer, Fender Rhodes, grand piano, my Nord Lead 3 through the Marshalls. That's a really big part of my sound. And very little Korg, very little digital sounds on this keyboard. Everything is very organic and analog.
Cool. So what is it about this kind of music, this instrumental music, that is so attractive to some listeners, do you think?
I think there's a freedom to it where there's no constraints lyrically, and you don't have to stay within certain parameters. And I think in instrumental music that there's a lot of freedom that you hear artists do. And I think that there are certain listeners that have that taste that respond to that kind of artistic freedom.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people seem to think that this type of music is really only appealing to fellow musicians, but I know a lot of people who don't play anything, and they love this kind of complex, challenging music. I mean, it's you don't need to be a keyboard player or guitar player to appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and I try to pick all the very best players on each instrument. So if you're a bassist, you're going to get, a great record. You're going to have 4 great bass players or guitar players. And drummers, you're not going to get anyone finer than Simon. So I don't try to appeal to just keyboard players at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the point I was trying to make. It's like, if you listen to any Derek Sherinian solo album or even the Planet X stuff, it's like this, it's not, yeah, it's dominated by keyboards at times, but you don't get that impression.
It's not a keyboard geek. It's not a keyboard geek record.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, and a lot of times your approach to keyboards is almost like a guitar player. I mean, it's very aggressive and you take chances. And I think that's what makes it different from listening to, like, say, a solo record by any other famous keyboard player, right? So, and I always kind of like that you kind of took that direction and that you're continuing to do that.
Cool. Thank you, Pete.
So let's go back in time, way back. So a very young Derek Sherinian who's first starting to learn his craft. So who were some of your early musical influences when you first kind of got started out?
Well, Elton John, the Beatles, there was always the Beatles in the house, growing up. So that was always there. But Elton John was like one of the first artists I really dug because he played piano and I was taking piano lessons. So there, I identified with him there. But as I got older, I started getting exposed to keyboard players like Rick Wakeman, Emerson, Jan Hammer, John Lord, those guys. John Lord, when I heard Highway Star, the way that organ sounded, I knew that had to be a big part of my sound. And that was the only way to roll in a rock band, because being a keyboard player in a rock band is a very slippery slope. And if you're using cheesy sounds and you write parts, you could really ruin a band. You could have
True.
the coolest band in the world, and then you get a cheesy keyboard player in there that doesn't know what he's doing, could really ruin the sound. And I think that's the case probably 95% of the time. Anytime I hear keyboards in a rock band, even more, 98%, it's just, there's no aggression. The sounds are just corny.
It's just filling space, right? It's got to be more than
not
that.
filling space. It's doing more. It's ruining the space that's there. And you either are contributing to the sound and making it heavier or adding atmosphere, or you're detracting from it. So my keyboard style is, a lot of it's derived, when I solo, it's based off of my favorite guitar players, Ed Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Yngwie, Jeff Beck, Alan Holdsworth. But my keyboard style, a lot of it is based off of like John Lord, Elton John, Jan Hammer. There's some Emerson in there, a little bit of Wakeman, but it's pretty much, I try to do a best of all of our favorite rock keyboardists. Like in Zeppelin, all the killer keyboards in Zeppelin, I incorporate into my sound in Black Country Communion. And then the organ sound is from John Lord or from Boston, or, any of those bands. Kansas, Steve Walsh, those guys were huge influences on my B3 sound. So you can hear a little bit of that.
Something about the Hammond B3, man. So many great players.
Here's the thing. My B3 is from 1959. So that thing has been doing gigs for 60
Forever.
years now. And it sounded great in 1959 and it sounds great in 2020.
There you go.
And some things are timeless. I think a lot of these digital keyboards and gadgets that you hear people playing on stuff, it might sound interesting at the moment, and then people put it on record, but guess what? That record's forever. And that sound that might sound good this year or this month, all of a sudden becomes old, and you're stuck with this not timeless sound on your record. And I think that a lot of people are victims to that and are going to be very regretful in years to come.
There's your plea for vintage gear, right?
Well, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we start talking about some of your other projects and bands that you're with, so the new record's coming out September 18th. So obviously we know what's kind of going on now, right? So we got COVID-19 running rampant. Live music has basically not happened. So what are your plans to kind of, I guess, in the short term, or maybe long term, we should say, to kind of promote the album? I mean, did you originally have plans to maybe play some live dates, or is that something you're going to push into 2021? You have anything surrounding the album that you're planning on doing, other than just like releasing it and moving on to the next thing? Or do you think
no, there's no dates. I don't think anyone's planning new dates. I mean, I didn't have solo dates planned. So I think with these solo records for now, this one's just going to come out, and maybe in the future there'll be tour dates.
Okay. So that's basically what I'm hearing from everybody. It's like everything is just kind of up in the air.
Yeah, no one knows what's up.
Yeah. So Sons of Apollo. So you guys released your second album to lots of acclaim at the beginning of the year, did some touring here, heading over to Europe, and then this hits and kind of takes the plug out of everything. So do you feel like all this is kind of, stalled a little of your momentum, or are you just kind of psyched to kind of regroup when, hopefully in 2021 and just kind of continue where you left off? And have you guys thought about new music already? Because the months are just flying by. So kind of what's the status of Sons of Apollo right now?
Well, we have dates. All our European dates are rescheduled for May 2021. So that's what's on the horizon right now. And as far as writing, Ron and I are always writing. So, that never stops, whether it's for our solo records or Sons of Apollo.
Okay. Cool. And it's got to be tough with a band like that because everybody's so busy doing so many things. So I think when you guys do get together and say, okay, we're going to put together an album, it probably comes together fairly quickly because everybody's coming with ideas because, like you said, you're always working on material. So,
Yeah.
and so far with Sons of Apollo, you guys have a pretty good track record of what, every 2 years or so, here we are again type
Yeah.
of
So
thing.
far. So
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
Good.
So we'll
Good.
see.
Cool. So we go from Sons of Apollo to Black Country Communion. So what's new over in that neck of the woods?
Well, I just talked to Joe, and we're looking at doing a record next year sometime, as soon as there's an open window. But that's definitely going to happen. BCC 5, which I'd be excited to do.
Cool. I know everybody's waiting for that. So, and do you ever get any kind of, BCC doesn't really play live much, obviously, because Joe's schedule is so ridiculous. He's got the solo career, and, Glenn now is in Dead Daisies and everything that you've been doing. So is there a hope that at some point when you guys do another record that you may be able to go out and play some select shows?
Absolutely. It'll happen. As you said, it all comes down to scheduling. But where there's a will, there's a way. And if it's planned up, if there's a record coming out, that makes more sense to do some shows around it. Like we might do a string of UK shows at the end of the year. Like we do some London, and then we do Wolverhampton, which is cool. We've done that a couple December. So that would be cool to do.
I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Black Country Communion, a night or two headlining at New York's Beacon Theater. That's a place that Joe plays a lot. I'm sure you guys could sell that out. That'd be a nice little surprise for us East Coast folks.
All my friends say to me, Derek, if Black Country Communion was a full-time band, you guys would be one of the top bands out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that brings me to my next question. So you've been involved in all sorts of things for so long. I think most folks who follow you always expect Derek to come out with something, whether it's a solo or another collaboration or something with Black Country Communion or Sons of Apollo or what have you. You've got a very illustrious career, and you've kind of done it all. So do you like this kind of busy schedule with your hand in a lot of different things, or does, like, deep down inside, do you wish that one of these bands would just really kind of break big and that's what you do full time for X amount of time? What do you prefer, either or do you just kind of take it as it comes?
I would prefer to be in U2 or one band that's just fucking huge,
right?
And not fuck around with all these split screen post-COVID goofy videos and dumb live stream collaborations and desperate attempts for attention. I would rather just be in one fucking cool band that kicks ass and I can just focus and every once in a while do a solo album.
Yeah. I think everybody wants that. Yeah.
Here's the deal though. I mean, let's be real. We're all 50, all the guys in our band. We're not all the great bands in rock and roll history. If you were to look at AC/DC, Zeppelin, the Stones, Beatles, all of them were in their early 20s when they broke. Because that's just the way rock and roll is. It's a young man sport, and they built these bands up over the last 50, 40 years, 30 years, and God bless them. And bands that have stuck together and have done that are very rare, few and far between. And so at this point in the game, it would be nice to have one band that can go out there and do it, but it's just, with everyone's schedules, it's really hard to commit and get over that hump where you're bringing in 1,000 people in every city that you're playing with, and because that's what you really need to hit in order to make a living.
Yeah, I
mean,
I agree
to do
with
it out there, and then so anything underneath that, you're scraping it and you're struggling, and the older you get, it gets fucking harder. You know, even me, who's in incredible shape, I still struggle to fucking get out of my bunk.
Yep.
Because it's my joints are tiring. Yep. My joints are all stiff.
Hey, I'm in the same.
And I can't see, man. If I lose my reader glasses, I'm fucked. I cannot see.
Yeah, I hear you.
It gets tough, man.
I know. I'm 54. I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's amazing how quickly it happens too.
I'm 53, so you know.
Yeah, we're in the same ball game there. Yeah. So, but I you know what I think. If the stars align and everybody's schedules align, honestly, I think either Sons of Apollo or Black Country Communion can be that band playing you know, 2 to 5 to 10,000 seaters night after night, going out and killing it on the road.
You know what? Until then, it is what it is, and
Yeah.
I've learned to not have too big of expectations of things.
Well, you
and
can't.
just to
Yeah,
keep
you can't.
moving. And so I'm glad to have both of those bands to do records with whenever they do them, and my solo deal. And I've been building up my session business here at home. Like I've been doing sessions for huge bands like Whitesnake, Michael Schenker last week, Brad Gillis, Joel Hoekstra. But then I also do a lot of sessions for artists all over the world who you've never heard of and that are up and coming and that just love my keyboard playing and want me on their record. So that's my what I've been doing since Sons of Apollo came home from the tour, because there's no live thing. So that's my business and I love it. I love doing these sessions. So anyone that wants me on their record, you can just reach out to me and let's do it, man. I'll make it rock.
So basically Derek Sherinian's life is not boring at all.
No, it's never. But what's great about it is it would be great to be on a huge tour and rolling. But every day I wake up, I swim in my pool, I make my coffee, and then I'm in my studio until my back hurts too much or I can't sit anymore. And then I go swim some more, and then that's it. But every day, that's what it is. Just swimming and tracking.
There you go. Life is good. Life is good. So
it's all good.
Yeah. Any current younger players on the scene that you've been following a little bit that you got your eye on?
No, there's one kid that's been helping me out with some demos. This kid named Dmitro Ignatov from Ukraine, who I think is a super player. He got my attention. He played my a video of himself playing my God of the Sun keyboard solo, but on guitar, and it was really amazing. His adaptation of it was really impressive. So I reached out to him, and I want to help this kid out if I can in some way. But right now he's playing on some demos, and I'm helping him out by playing on some of his stuff.
Awesome. That sounds good. So September 18th, the Phoenix coming out on Inside Out Music. Any last words for the fans on what to expect from this album and what they're in store for?
I think that this album is amazing. And if you're a fan of instrumental music and great musicianship, I highly recommend the Phoenix. It's the best of the best on here. And it's getting amazing response so far around the world. So check it out. You can check out some of the clips online.
Cool. Derek, you want to give any links to any of your websites or places they can go find
at dereksherinian.com, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and then also sonsofapollo.com and all of our social platforms on there as well.
Awesome. So thanks a lot for joining us today, Derek. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your support over the years.
You're very, very welcome. So again, guys, make sure you check out The Phoenix, coming out September 18th from Derek Sherinian. Great solo album. Also visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Derek Sherinian, I am Pete Pardo. See you guys tomorrow. Derek, thanks again. Have a good one, my friend.
Thanks, Pete. Take care, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.